Thank you, Chairman Whitehouse. And it is so good to see your leadership on these issues. And as you and I have talked about, they have dramatic ramifications for both public and private budgets. So, Senator Whitehouse, we really appreciate your taking the lead and having this hearing. And for all of you, I'm sorry that I've been juggling today, but we live and breathe, particularly the breathing part, this horrible set of fires we've had. And the reality is these fires are not your grandfather's fires. They are bigger, they're hotter, they're more powerful. We get them often almost year round. And, you know, when you go out to these communities, as I have town halls in every county in my state, Talent and Phoenix, you know, for example, they just got devastated by, recent fires. And I noticed, Dr. Wera, that you commented on the fire fix. I'm the author of that legislation with Senator Crapo, so we could end finally this disgrace of fire borrowing, where, I mean, it was bizarre even by Washington, D.C. standards, where the federal government would go out and borrow from the prevention fund to put the fire out, and then everybody'd say, but where's the prevention money? And we stopped it. We said the biggest fires are now basically going to be treated as the disasters they are. So I appreciated your noting that. By the way, the estimates are that we saved somewhere in the vicinity of $2 billion as a result of the fire fix that Senator Crapo and I wrote. And of course, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act added funds. But here's my question. We know that there's a lot more to do. And if anything, the centerpiece, in my view, is further professionalizing the workforce, in this field, because it is now year-round. The salaries we've begun to make a difference on, but I can tell you, I'm going to be in Central Oregon this weekend having town hall meetings, and over lots of rural communities, you will see signs that say help wanted, and they're still paying more than a lot of people who would work in fighting fire would make. So if you're us and you want to work with Chairman Whitehouse and continue these efforts in terms of fire, what would be the next best steps in terms of people, technology? Just pretend you're in charge of the next steps in terms of professionalizing folks at the Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, who are really doing phenomenal work on the ground, but they deserve, as you know, some more resources. And so I can tell people where those resources might best go. Tell us what you think are the best investments in professionalism in fighting fire.
Well, as you point out, Senator Wyden, the fire funding fix made a tremendous difference, and I could not agree more. But the challenge is that the problem is accelerating so rapidly that it's very hard for government to keep up. I also agree that there's intense competition for the skilled labor, the skilled workforce that fights our fires. In California, it's much more profitable to be a Cal Fire firefighter than a U.S. Forest Service firefighter. And even better than that is to get a job as a PG&E arborist. And so there is real competition for the workforce. If you know how to use a chainsaw and drop trees in a very professional and skilled way, which very few people do, especially under dangerous circumstances, there are many people that want to hire you in the West. I think the Forest Service needs to offer competitive wages. They're moving in that direction, and I think that's really important, and we need to double down on that and make sure that we are market competitive with the other potential applications. I'd say beyond that, we really need to stand up a process and programs to train the mitigation workforce. We are very good at training firefighters. We need to be equivalently good and create pathways, career pathways, for folks like Morgan Varner, who testified earlier, people who want to do the things that are what the firefighters call left of bang, right, before the fire happens. At the same time, I just note that I know from speaking with many former Forest Service firefighters that the life lived by the modern U.S. Forest Service fire professional in the current fire environment is just really tough. The mental health challenges are enormous. The separation from family strains marriages and really can break families. And I think we need to be looking at structural change in how we staff fires to ensure that we can actually recruit and retain, most importantly, the most skilled firefighters.
My time is up, and I think what I'd like to ask is...
It's just us two left, so proceed.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it would be very helpful if you would be willing to do something along the lines of a short paper that could flesh out, here is what the Congress ought to be trying to do as it begins to further professionalize, the workforce. You're absolutely right about these firefighters. I mean, they have been so courageous, so gutsy, and just as you describe, they come to my meetings in the rural part of the state and say, this has just been impossible to sustain. They describe, trying to pay the rent, for example, and trying to make sure that their kids have shoes and do all of the things that we're talking about today and that are essential. And the math doesn't pencil out. So we've got to figure out, wages. At least three things would be helpful: wages, training, and technology. Because if you can get those three right, you might be on your way to being able to recruit. And my staff has been singing your praises. And for all of you, we so appreciate it. I'm sorry to because we've had lots of committees today, so I've missed some of the testimony. But for us in Oregon, this is really what we're all about. We have forestry in our DNA, and we never expected anything like this. Senator Mark Hatfield, for example, our legendary Republican senator, he would invite us in July, and he would say, colleagues, we'll talk about the fire season, which basically was August. And that was that. And it is, as I say, not your grandfather's forestry challenge. And just so appreciate what you're doing. And of course, my friend Sheldon Whitehouse, we made the biggest investment in climate change in American history last year. It could not have happened without this fellow in the chair. Not just his sweat equity, the fact that he went to the floor day after day, week after week, laying it out. But in the committee, when we were trying to move a piece of legislation to basically unravel the federal tax code as it related to energy, and senators were casting really gutsy votes, votes that could really be career altering, Senator Whitehouse was always out there making the case. He said, look, this isn't everything. We never said it was. It was the federal tax code, for Pete's sakes. But he was out there as somebody who's so well respected, saying, we've got to do this now. This is what's on offer today. So I'm very appreciative of Senator Whitehouse's leadership. And to all of you who are working the forestry precincts, so to speak, thank you. And I gave Dr. Wera an assignment, but the rest of you can feel free to pitch in. It's not mandatory homework for anybody, but we'd be very interested in your ideas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.